Hi, I'm making this video just to show you how to be able to assign a concept unit and then how to provide feedback to students to their checkpoints as well as their performance task at the end. And the reason that I'm doing this is because at Last Focus, there were a lot of teachers who had this question as to once all of the resources become available to them and their students, how do they assign the concept units and how do they provide them with feedback. So I have the platform open in my Algebra 1 curriculum, and I'm going to click on my first concept unit, Features of Functions. When you assign a concept unit, the first thing that you want to do is you want to click Assign Math Unit, and you want to start by creating a start date and a due date. So I'm going to say that I want this to start on September the 4th, and I want to do by October the 25th. Now, this is not permanent. Let's say that on October the 21st, you realize that students need more time to continue working on the concept unit. You can always go to this exact same spot, and all you have to do is just change the date. Now I'm going to go ahead and assign to all my students. And now I have the feature to assign checkpoints. Here, you can see the different checkpoints, 1, 2, 3, and the portfolio problems. But within each checkpoint, you can also see all these other resources. And these are basically your warm-ups, the cooldowns, the lesson synthesis, and the activities that are associated within the concept lessons that are then associated with the checkpoint. So I can assign the first concept unit. I'm going to click Assign All. But then I still have to go through and assign each individual resource within that checkpoint. So I'm just going to assign every single resource for the lessons associated with that checkpoint. I could go through and I could assign everything if I wanted to, but I'm just going to show you what that looks like. So I'm going to click Save. Okay. Now, now that I've assigned it, I hope that you saw this fourth tab appear, and we'll talk about this fourth tab that says Students, what that means later. But once you've assigned the concept unit, then you'll have access to this tab. Okay, now that I've assigned the concept unit and some of the resources, I'm going to click on Plans. Now, I went ahead and created a copy of the concept unit for myself, but if you haven't, you would see a orange bar up here with the option to create a copy. And so all you need to do is just click on Create a Copy, and when you do that, you will see this little box up here that says Shared to Students. It's going to be unchecked, so it's up to you to check it so that students are able to see it. I'm going to go ahead and uncheck these days, actually. Days 1, 2, and 3 are associated with checkpoint 1, and that's all I have assigned resources for. So, just to show you, I'm not going to assign these days. Let me show you what it looks like on a student side when you don't assign days. So I'm going to view as one of my students. His name is Christian. And so for any one of my students that goes into the platform, when they click on year and they go to the first concept unit, they can see that it's due on October the 25th. And when I click on it, they can see an overview for checkpoint number 1. They can see all of the resources that I shared with them that I assigned to them. But when I click on plans, they only see day 1. And actually, they shouldn't see day 1 at all. I need to send in a help desk because I haven't actually assigned day 1. And so I'm a little bit confused as to why this one's showing up. But as you can see, you cannot see day 2 or day 3 because even though I've shared all of the resources there with them, and even though they can see the resources here under overview for checkpoint 1, they cannot distinguish the cooldown, the lesson synthesis, the activities. They can't distinguish that because they're not neatly organized here. So let me go back. I'm going to stop viewing. And I'm going back to my concept unit, features of functions. Now, let me go ahead and select share to students for day 1, day 2, and day 3. So I'm going to go back to viewing as Christian. And I'm going back to year. And I'm still going back to that first concept unit. If I click on plans now, I can see days 1, days 2, and days 3. Again, I'm confused as to why this first day 1 was showing up there. I'm not sure why that is. Maybe it's just a glitch. But before you assign a day to a student, it will not show up here unless you click that box. So my suggestion, if you kind of want to make it, if you kind of want to save time, when you go to assign math unit and you set your days, when you're assigning your checkpoints, you could technically assign all of these resources, but the day that you're actually going to do a concept lesson with your students, that's the day that I would go ahead and actually click on these boxes for them to then kind of see what's going to happen that day. Or, but that's a teacher preference. You could technically assign all of the resources and all of the days, but just to kind of keep the students, I guess, thinking about what's going to happen the next day, it's also a good idea to just kind of click this box the day of, the day that they're actually going to work on this concept lesson. Now, after I have assigned the concept unit and I have shared with my students the days, I'm going to go ahead and show you how do you provide students with feedback on their checkpoints. So for that option, you're going to have to click on the 4th tab that says Students. And on this 4th tab, you can see the checkpoints, the portfolio problems, and the end of the unit assessment. If I click on the first checkpoint, I'm going to click on progress. I can click on my students individually. And so let's say that, again, for checkpoint number 1, there were 3 days. And for those days, let me go ahead and hide this because you don't really need this. For those 3 days, I gave a cooldown. And Caesar was able to complete all 3 of those cooldowns and was able to show me mastery. In that case, I would give Caesar a green. Or, let's say that for each of those 3 days that were associated with checkpoint 1, I assigned Caesar 3 problem sets, and Caesar was able to complete the 3 problem sets and give them back to me. If he showed mastery, again, I could give him a green. Or, if he did some of it, but there were some errors and he didn't quite demonstrate mastery, I could give him a yellow. Or if he just didn't do any of it, or maybe demonstrated that he didn't really understand or grasp the concept at all, I could give him a red. But that's how you would give them feedback for the checkpoints. I'm going to collapse this. And also for the portfolio problems. I haven't assigned the portfolio problems, and so that's why I can't go in and give them feedback on those. But I have assigned checkpoint 1, and so that's why you can see the option to give them feedback there. When I get to the end of the unit assessment, which is a test that happens in class, and on paper, you would also individually click on students here, and you would click on the concept skill that's being assessed in that end of the unit assessment, create and interpret, and you should be able to kind of read this rubric and decide based on the preponderance of evidence what level you're gonna designate for them. And so we'll talk more about scoring at next focus, but I hope that as of right now you have an idea of how to assign the concept unit, how to provide feedback for students on checkpoints, portfolio problems, and also where to go to kind of give them feedback for the end of the unit assessment. Up here, you see that there is a webinar that's coming up, and apparently there's a lot of webinars available. All you have to do if you have questions about any of the features that are on the concept unit, just sign up for one, and you can ask them those questions. They might be able to answer them in more detail than I can, or if you still have questions regarding the concept unit and assigning it or providing students with feedback, you can always email me, and I can email you back. So I hope this helps.